good people. Hello. This is Whitney.
And it's your girl Alicia.
And this is the Luxe Hour Podcast.
Join us weekly as we encourage Black women to elevate into luxury.
Yes, ma'am. All right, y'all. So we have wine glasses out here for the aesthetic. But today, we will not have a wine of the week.
We will not.
So I am on a fast. Are you on a fast?
I'm not on a fast.
Alicia's just taking a break. But right now, neither of us are drinking, so we don't have a wine of the week this week, or next week. But we're just gonna get straight into the meat. We're still gonna do the treat of the week. We'll be back with wine of the week in a couple of episodes, so join us 2 episodes from now, and we'll be back with the wine. But hopefully y'all are doing well. Y'all's week is going good.
Yeah.
So, Alicia, you want to lead us in the treat of the week?
Yes. So for those of you guys who do not know, if this is your first time tuning in, our treat of the week is essentially the luxury that you've indulged in for the week.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be whatever luxury is to you. But so treat of the week, what you have for us? What you get? What'd you buy? Where'd you go?
Y'all, I'm not gonna lie. Does it count to say my treat of the week was saving money? Like,
yes.
I didn't really do too much of anything that can be classified as a treat of the week. Just really trying to level out my spending, because anybody that knows me knows I'm swipe the card Sally. So I think my treat of the week was saving money this week. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, like, we've done episodes on finances. We will do more episodes on finances.
Yes. But
But it's a luxury to be able to, instead of spending your money, to put it into an investment account or to use it to buy stocks. I did make some good money this week on an American Airlines trade. So,
amen.
with American Airlines, probably about 3 weeks ago, at the beginning of January, some of y'all may or may not remember from the news, but the cell phone companies, Verizon, AT&T, they were going to release 5G. Basically flip the switch on 5G. Now, it's already been out in certain parts of the world, certain parts of the country, but they were going to flip the switch pretty much nationwide on January 3rd or 7th or something like that.
I don't remember.
But the airlines were like, you cannot do this. The planes will fall out of the sky. Like, legitimately, they went all the way so far as to file a lawsuit to get an injunction from the court to stop the airline companies, the cell phone companies, the wireless companies, from releasing 5G because the planes were not equipped for them. Essentially, the fear was that when the planes were come in contact with the 5G towers, that the towers may interrupt or disturb the meters, the readings, and basically throw the planes out of whack. So that you couldn't really tell, the pilots would have trouble telling what the air pressure was or what the landing speed was. Like, it would throw off the gauges within the cockpit. And so the airline companies were like, listen, unless y'all want to be responsible for a whole bunch of calamity, you gotta wait, right? So before it was able to go to court, the wireless companies opted to just wait 2 weeks. Now, this was pointless, absolutely, because of course the airlines were not going to be ready to
combat that.
Yeah, because essentially what it is these airlines have not been updating the planes like they should. We riding in old planes, the planes this close to falling out the sky, and so they barely pass an inspection. And rather than put the money into improving their fleets so that the airlines could be more up to date, the airlines just kind of been stuffing it under the table like, oh, it'll be fine. And so now it's time to pay the piper, and they were like, we're not ready. The planes won't make it. They're too old. So the wireless companies were like, listen, that's not our problem. You know what I'm saying? Like, we told y'all this a year and a half ago. We don't know what to tell you. I decided I'm going to go ahead and bet against American Airlines. So what I did was I bought a bunch of put options. If you're not familiar with option trading, calls mean that you are saying that you believe the stock price is going to go up. So if you think that American Airlines stock is going to go up, or if you think, like, for example, you say, okay, the wireless companies are releasing 5G, that'll be good for them, their stock prices will go up. You will place a call option. But if you think the stock is going to go down, right? So if you say, well, the airlines ain't ready, and who knows what type of calamity is going to happen, I'm sure the stock price will go down. You bet against it by buying a put. So that's what I did. I bought some puts against American Airlines, which was crazy because the stock hasn't fallen below $16. I put a $16 call, $16 put, which basically says I think that this stock is going to go to $16 or lower, right? And so the closer it gets to $16, at the time it was at like $18.50 or something like that. But it hadn't been at 16 since roughly the beginning of the pandemic, and it's been relatively stable, just because airlines themselves are relatively stable flights, especially with travel picking back up and things like that. But I was like, I think it's going to drop back down. So I bet against it. Not luckily, but the whole market ended up crashing. So it wasn't necessarily a byproduct of the 5G rollout. I think it partnered with that, but there was a huge market correction this week. If you are big into stocks at all, if you even know anything about stocks, if you even just see them come up on your phone, you probably saw a whole bunch of red. That was a correction that happened this week, which means that the market is trying to balance itself out. It basically means that the stocks are all overpriced. None of the companies are really worth the amount that their stock prices are sitting at. And so inevitably the stock market has to correct itself at some point, and that kind of started this week. It worked out in my favor because I had those puts, baby, and American Airlines dropped all the way down to $15.73, and I cashed out. So maybe that's my treat of the week.
That is a treat of the week.
Yeah,
that's definitely a treat of the week because gains are gains. You know, gains are gains. Gains are gains, guys. Yes, ma'am. I love that. That's a great treat of the week. You're welcome, girl. Come on. You know, on the other hand, I don't trade my own stocks. I let Merrill Lynch do that for me. So, but yeah, my stock definitely, we took some hits, like 4%.
I think that's the benefit
but that wasn't
of having your hands in your portfolio, though. Like, because I think to some degree, like, of course, it's more convenient to have the companies manage it for you, especially if you don't have the time. But I'm somebody that like to learn it for myself and get into it and get my hands dirty. And so, especially like day trading. And y'all, I've said this before, but like, I have a few different investment accounts, right? Like, I have one for long-term investment, which is kind of what you were talking about. Like, you buy the stocks you believe in, the companies that you want to invest in long-term, and you leave them alone. But then I've been like day trading a little bit, like trying to catch the market, catch the swings, use that as an additional source of income. So that's what I've been doing. But I feel you with the having somebody manage it.
I mean, and then also I work during the day. Like during the day, I don't work from home or anything. Like literally, I'm client facing throughout the day. So there's no way that I can effectively, that is needed, be able to go in and like watch the stock market. And technically, certain industries will now that I'm an officer with that institution, there's certain things that they prohibit.
Conflicts of interest.
Conflicts of interest, inside information, especially once you get into like different lines of business within the financial firm, because you will get inside information, so you have to be careful. But either way, regardless, I'm not that deep. But but I think just for me, honestly, it's something that I haven't learned for myself. But I know also it's just unrealistic for me because I work during the day and I don't get to work from home. So I literally can't even have my phone out at my job. Yeah. So literally, that's not something I'll be able to do. But I do think it is definitely beneficial for you to learn the market and for you to be able to, have your hands in it at least to some degree. Yeah. So if you definitely can do that and you're in that position, take advantage. Take full advantage.
And even if you don't have the time to day trade or, because, and it really doesn't take a lot of time, but if you don't have, at least understand how the market works, because that's at least what you do understand how the market works, what companies are. That way, when investment portfolios are being managed by these external companies, different banks manage your portfolio, you can look at it and say, hey, I like this distribution, or I don't like this distribution, or I want to put a little bit more money into this industry as opposed to that industry. So it just helps a ton like that, but it's 1,000,001 ways to invest. So my tip for y'all is to find a way to multiply your money this week.
Because also to note that with most firms, if you're not invested at least $20K, they do not manage your portfolio for you. You only have one option, which is self-directed. So you will have to trade for yourself. You will manage your own portfolio. So to Whit's point, unless you're managing that type of money, honey, you're on your own. This is information that you need to know. At least for the most part, like you said, have some type of working knowledge about how the stock, market works and what industries are doing well. At least try to stay somewhat tapped in. But I think it's just always good to have that information anyway. Know what's going on in the world around you. Maybe you don't know all the details, but at least the overarching thing or the main picture, bigger picture.
That's so true. Yeah,
yes.
Very true. But anyway, enough about the stocks. What's your treat of the week?
Yeah, so my treat of the week was actually I bought a flight to go visit my dad for his birthday.
Come on, flights. We catch flights, not families. Okay.
Well, yeah, and so this one was definitely my dad does stay in Atlanta, so of course Atlanta is a great place to go. But no, literally my dad is one of my best friends. I love him to pieces. I talk to him every day. And literally if we miss a day, it might be 6 out of 7 days of the week, but we'll make it back up because it'll be a while before we miss another day. But so anyway, I get to go visit him. His birthday is February 9th, but I'm flying down there and the weekend is that right before his birthday, because his wife has plans for him the following weekend.
That's right.
So
I got stuff to
he
do.
said, "Look, I got stuff to do.
I
honey.
got plans. I want to see you, but the week before."
Okay, so that'll be nice. So I get to definitely go out there for him, and just be there for him. And then also some of my other siblings, everything worked out. Some of them are also able to come, so they'll be meeting us there also. So it's 3 of my siblings out of the 6 siblings that I have that'll be able to come down and visit him on his birthday weekend. My dad, he's like one of those guys, he's a true alpha male, but so he's one of those guys where, I don't need anything for my birthday, it's just another day, and and don't give me anything, I don't need anything, if anything, he's that person that'll try to make sure you're straight on his birthday.
Oh, well, that's exactly how my daddy is.
Girl,
I know what I feel.
plus it's a generational
thing.
Yeah, it definitely is. But it'll be nice for us to just spoil him at least with time. I mean, we can't buy him anything he can't buy himself, to be honest. But I think that my dad, he is sentimental in that way. He loves his kids. He's a family guy. So it'll be exciting to spend time with him on his birthday. So that was definitely a treat for me because I know it'll be a treat for him.
Yeah,
that's someone that I deeply care about, and that's a treat.
It's
where you spend your time, love on your loved ones, and be with family. So I'm super excited about that. Plus, when was the last time I went to Atlanta? Of course, it's always to visit my dad. I have fun while I'm down there too. We went 4th of July. All of our family met at his house.
That's always a good time. And your family be kicking it.
Girl, and I think we're actually going, we're going back this year too for 4th of July at my dad's house. So, but yeah, it'll be fun. So I'm super excited about it. But that was definitely my treat of the week because I know that'll do his heart some good. So I'm happy, And so definitely send prayers up for him too because, we lost my uncle, his brother, recently, and that was really heavy for him. That was his best friend. So, prayers please for my dad and my family, but this will be really good for him, and it'll be really good for us too. So.
Amen. We love a good refresh. That's so good. And if you don't follow Alicia on Instagram, she always posts all of the family fun stuff. So it's super cute pictures of her nieces and nephews. They always be having game nights. It's a fun time just to watch it. So if you don't follow her at Queen Think a Hustler.
Queen Think a Hustler, honey.
Soon to be. Oh wait, are we talking about that yet?
Child. Well,
we'll tell y'all on the next episode.
Yes. In the expansion. Yeah. Yes. Okay, we'll talk about that. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So that's treat of the week. That is our luxury, our indulgences for this week. Hopefully you have done the same and shown love to yourself in some way. So without further ado, today's topic. Today we are talking about the mother wound, especially in the Black community. So to be specific, the Black mother wound. We talk a lot about hurdles that men run into and obstacles that we run into dealing with men trying to heal different areas of trauma in their lives. But women carry trauma of their own. And one of the most notable forms of trauma that women carry, I think a lot of times people highlight the father wound and they say, oh, she got daddy issues. She got daddy issues. But one of the lesser discussed wounds that a lot of us carry to some degree or another is the mother wound, right? Yeah. And so we're going to get into it today. We're going to talk through the mother wound. If you are in a season where you are working on healing your relationship with your mom, if you are in a season where you are in a rough patch with your mom, if you haven't talked to your mom in forever, if your mom has passed away, bless her soul, these will all affect you. So it'll be a very vulnerable episode, a very transparent episode, but we're hoping that it helps a lot of Black women to identify additional sources of one, healing, but two, to just understand kind of the things and the hurdles and the roadblocks that you may be running into that you may not be attributing to the right things. So without further ado, I'm going to read a snippet about the mother wound because we want to consult science, people who actually understand the ins and outs and the logistics. So this is an article on Healthline. It's medically reviewed by Timothy J. Legg, who has a PhD and a doctorate in psychiatry. Is written by an author named Wanda Lewis. So that's where we're going to read this from. Let's see. So it says children, usually daughters, but sometimes also sons, are said to experience the mother wound if their mother, A, provided support by taking care of the physical needs of the children, but didn't give love, care, and security, right? So if your mom was a provider, a go-getter, a hustler, a worker, a boss lady, but maybe she wasn't so great with the emotional standpoint, providing the emotional security that you needed, you probably will feel some of these symptoms. If your mom didn't provide empathy to mirror your emotions and help them label and manage these emotions. So what does that mean? That means if a child is crying, if you had a shut up and quit crying type of mama instead of a it's okay, like you can work through it, you'll talk to me or figure out what's going on, like we can figure it out together. If there was no co-regulation of emotions, right? One of the main roles of moms is to co-regulate with their children emotionally, to help their children navigate through their emotions and learn how to process them. So if that didn't happen, you might find some struggles in life. If your mom didn't allow you to express negative emotions, if she was extra critical, if she expected you to support her with her physical and emotional needs. This is a big one. It's parenting the parent. A lot of people run into this where they unfortunately had to be the parent more often than not in the situation, right? So looking out for your parents' emotional needs before your own. Physically, some people physically had to provide for the house. They had to work very early. They had to pay bills, they had to do things like that. These are all roles that a child is just not equipped to take on. Even if you are 16, 17, you're not equipped to take it on. So that can cause some trauma later down the road. If your mom wasn't available to you, either because she had to work or because she was busy with her own stuff. If she suffered emotional or physical abuse herself and she didn't process the trauma and was therefore unable to love or nurture, to offer love or nurturing. If she had an untreated mental health condition, if she experienced alcoholism or drug addiction, all of these things can play into whether or not a mother wound is present in the child as they get older. Now it does say while both daughters and sons can feel the impact of under mothering that leads to the mother wound, it's typically considered a mother to daughter wound. Thanks to psychologist Mary Ainsworth and her attachment theory, we know that the trust that a mother instills in childhood positively affects not only the child's present, but also their future relationships. Meaning, a child who acquires the mother wound is likely to perpetuate this type of relationship with their own children. All right. I do want to read one more snippet. So it says, in patriarchal societies, which is what we live in America, right? So it's a predominantly male-run society. So a matriarchal society is really female-run societies, women as president, women as business leaders, women as head of the households. You see this a lot in other nations, especially in Africa. You see that, but not so much in westernized nations. But it may be easier for mothers to pass on their own mother wound to their daughters. Women who have internalized stereotypical beliefs that relegate women to second-class citizens are more likely to consciously or unconsciously transmit these beliefs to their daughters. Daughters in these societies may find themselves caught in a double-edged dilemma: accept what mom believes in so that we're in the same boat and she keeps loving me, or fight for my own beliefs and aim for empowerment. And it's no easy feat to take up the fight. So that is a brief synopsis. It wasn't so brief, but I want y'all to have the background on what a mother wound is, what types of things cause it, and how it presents in day-to-day life. So without further ado, I do have some screenshots from the holistic psychologist. I want to make sure that y'all have actual resources. So I know that this is a lot that I'm reading off, but I want y'all to understand contextually before we get into the meat of our discussion. So there's an Instagram account. If you're not following the holistic psychologist, highly recommend. She posts amazingly helpful and insightful content. It's at the.holistic.psychologist, but we will put that in the show notes for y'all. But it says, so I want y'all to read the difference between a mother wound and a father wound. So the mother wound shows up as a lack of boundaries and sense of self, engaging in savior type of behaviors like fixing, rescuing, or controlling others, body shaming, whether it be yourself or other women, unconsciously making choices to gain your mother's love or approval, meaning that you still do things to get your mom's pat on the back, essentially. Feeling threatened or competitive towards other women, feeling unworthy of creating a life on your own terms, or playing the role of peacemaker or rescuer. The father wound, however, shows up as a feeling of being lost or without purpose, engaging in dominating or masculine behaviors like oppressing, shaming, or abusing others, being disconnected to your sexual self, unconsciously making choices to gain your father's love and approval, feeling fearful, distrustful of, or preyed upon by men, feeling unworthy in love and meaningful relationships, and needing to achieve at any and all costs. So that's the difference between a mother wound and a father wound. So you can sit with yourself and think through which of those resonate deeper with you. But without further ado, I'll flip it to you because I've been talking for forever.
But no, it's good for you to have, I think it's good for everyone to have that background on it. Because I think when we hear the mother wound, we're like, okay, you know, or when we hear these topics or just different, I think, terms that we're not familiar with, it's easy for us to glaze over them. But then we have to, you know, like you said, provided that you have the information, what will you do with it now? Because if it resonated, if it hit home, then most likely you've been impacted in some type of way. So this is definitely for you to continue listening.
Exactly. And it's important to call out that a mother wound does not necessarily mean that you hate your mom, that y'all have bad relationships, that y'all even ever fell out at any point. You could very well love your mom dearly to death. She could be your best friend. But it's a wound to your feminine or masculine energy, right? It's a wound to your feminine energy, meaning that despite you all's relationship or how close it is, there are things that are wounded within your feminine character. So, without further ado, when did you realize that you had a mother wound?
I would say I realized that I had a mother wound when I went to college. So when I went off to school and I really was in a position to where I was literally on my own and I was figuring things out for myself. And I think it was just because the way in which my mom reacted to different things, so different, whether it was decisions that I was making or philosophies that I had, and it didn't come from a negative space, because again, to Whit's point, my mom is my best friend also. I talk to my mom every day, just like I talk to my dad. We're extremely close, you know, but the thing was, again, she was teaching. I started to notice about the different things that she taught us, you know, as far as philosophies and behaviors and mannerisms and just what was attainable, what was possible, and what was right, what was wrong. A lot of that, I realized that it was much deeper than the surface, and it definitely didn't come from a negative space or because again, she truly wanted the best for me. But that's when I realized it's like, oh wait, we're not on the same page with everything, and that's okay. But also at the same time, it was like, you know, I was noticing that, okay, well, those beliefs were, you know, being forced upon me. It was like, okay, well, you don't believe these things, so okay, well, what's wrong with you in these areas? And again, it was coming from a great place, I'm sure. It came from a great place, but that's when I realized that it was like, oh, like we're, you know, we see things differently, essentially. You know, in certain areas, we just completely see things differently. And so that space, it caused me to, again, we were always really close, but I found myself walking alone a little bit more in a few areas. And that's when I realized that it was a disconnect. And that's when I would say now, I wasn't familiar with the mother wound until maybe like a year and a half ago. Maybe it was a year and a half ago. But that's when I realized that it was something bigger than, you know, okay, well, you know, my mom, she just doesn't agree with these few things, or we clash on these topics. But that's when I realized it was a problem. But that realization was actually me realizing that a mother wound was present.
That's really good, because it's almost like you realize that you didn't really have the right to be your own person, right? Like it wasn't really safe to separate or to differ from your mom. It's crazy because I have a friend who's going through something very similar with her mom. Is her, like, they talk every day, but her mom is she's from a different time, right? So for one, and because of that, because when she was younger, there was scarcity in terms of food or in terms of money or in terms of provision. She very much so like encourages, it's not an intentional poverty mindset, but it's like, hey, you need to be careful. You need to save more. You need to, should you buy that? Should you actually spend money on that? And it makes her second guess a lot of things, but she's realizing that her mom approaches things from a place of fear or from a desire to be secure. So that's a great example. Like she's running into that a lot, where she's just kind of like, I feel like even things like she wants to leave her job, and her mom's like, well, don't leave. That's a good
security.
Job.
That's a good job right there.
And she's like, I'm not happy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so that's a very, very good call out. And it reminds me of the point, like in the article, where it kind of feels like the child starts to feel like they're not supported by their parent, right? And that's never ever. I'm sure that was never your mom's intention,
right?
But it makes when your mom wants you to see things the way that she sees them and only the way she sees them, then you don't feel supported in your own thought processes, and that's cognitively damaging for a child. That's good. I think for me, my mom and I had a rocky teenage season throughout my 20s and throughout college, so it was almost the opposite, right? We've gotten a lot closer. Our relationship has rebounded tremendously. I'm like flying down to spend my birthday with her. Like I love spending time with her, spending time with my family. But I realized that I had a mother wound, despite the fact that we had the history that we had. I didn't really realize that it was a mother wound until I realized maybe a few years ago. I realized how much I really struggled with emotional connection and attachment. And I was like really struggling to actually attach to things, to not just, be in a relationship and not be like, I'll leave, right? Like, it was a real like struggle with attachment, and with being able to manage negative emotions, heavy emotions like failure or rejection or fear. Like I didn't really have productive tools to manage those very large emotions. But then also like not being able to communicate my emotions, or this fear of being perceived as soft or weak, right? So like not small things, like not being able to like express how I feel to the guy that I'm dating, right? Like, so that's really how I realized like there's a wound here to the feminine. Mine's presented 100% on the emotional like stability and security portion, for sure, like hands down. What emotions do you feel like came with realizing your mom unintentionally wounded you and may not know or care, right? So the basis for this question is that some of us know that we've had rocky relationships with our mom, and we've tried to have conversations. There are some people who have completely gone no contact with their moms, and it's because a lot of times when moms are presented with this conversation of like, this is how I feel, there's a defense that pops up, right? And it's not, and it's not intentional, but it's them saying, listen,
I did the best I could with what I had.
We know that line, baby.
I did the best I could. I did the best I could. Exactly. I was better than my mom, my dad. They did this to me.
And so for them, it feels like a slap in the face, right? It feels like,
absolutely. It feels like disrespect.
It feels like disrespect.
And I will say this, and again, me and my mom, we had a conversation, and since then we've actually been able to talk about this conversation, and she's done a lot of healing. I've done a lot of healing, and we realized that it was really generational trauma that we were fighting, not each other.
Exactly.
Because I don't disrespect my parents, definitely not intentionally. Now, I'm sure that there'll be times where they can tell you where they feel like, okay, you're being disrespectful now, but there's never a time I've ever wanted to intentionally disrespect my parents. But I remember when I told my mom, and I remember we had a conversation, and I was just telling her like, okay, this is damaging when you do this, when you say this is how it makes me feel. It makes me feel this small. I understand that I'm a child, but also understand that I'm becoming a young woman. And I understand that I have to respect you, and I do respect you, but you still have to treat me in a way that is respectful. We should be able to give each other mutual respect. And that was a conversation I had, and I remember she told me, oh, see, you getting disrespectful, you getting beside yourself. And
by asking for respect.
And by asking for respect, and I get it. Again, my mom is sweet as pie. Like, she is sweet as pie. She has a feisty side.
She make good pie.
She makes
great
good
cake. We still waiting on that pound.
Yes, we are. I'm gonna have her make some more. When she gets back, she's still out of town. So she's working remote, so she's out of town still. Sister's on a 3-week vacation.
Catch y'all when I catch y'all, right? Don't call me, I'll call you.
Okay, no, really. That's how she I'm busy right now, but I'm gonna call you back later, okay? Love you, dog. Bye. I'll be like, okay. Did she just petty me?
Not a girl.
Okay. She just definitely curved me, very bougie like. But anyway, but I remember we had that conversation. I was like, Mom, you know, and I was just telling her, I was like, when you shut me down like that, it makes me want to shut down because it makes me feel like you don't care or you don't respect me. And of course, I would never want to intentionally respect you, but if we cannot have a conversation in which both of us are being heard and we are being seen in that moment, that as your child, that doesn't make me feel good. That makes me feel insignificant. And I really had to break it down. And at first, we couldn't really have this conversation because, to be fair, you know, our parents, you know, we're millennials. Well, I'm millennial.
I think I made the cut. I think you made last year.
I think so. In 95, yeah. Okay, you're the last one.
Yeah, I thought 96 is like.
I thought. Yeah. Oh, okay.
It's one of them. I claim millennial. Okay.
It's one of them. But so our parents, you know, my mom barely made the baby boomers. My parents did there because they're 64. So 64 and 65. So they barely made the baby boomers. Okay, but they still from a different generation where it's what I said, that's it, because I said so. Shut up, don't talk back, don't say anything. If you do say anything, it's disrespect. You know, that's what they are taught and that's what they perpetuate. But when you do that, you snatch your child's voice and you make them feel insignificant. You make them feel small. You make them not feel heard. You make them feel like you do not care. And so I remember, so I was telling my mom and I was like, this is not a shot at you. Me saying what I need from you to feel seen or to feel heard, which is an innate need. That's not to say that you're a bad mom. That's not to say that you're a bad person. That's just saying that I need something a little different than what you're giving me.
Yeah.
You know, and it, again, that doesn't make you a bad person because no, most likely you're trying to be better than your mom was to you. And that's when we were really able to have that conversation and we were really just able to break it down. And she was like, well, my mom was sweet as pie too, but you know, her mom, she was sweet as pie too, but they all had a mean streak. And you know, but a lot of it was perpetuated wounds passed down and disguised as this is how a good mom raises her children. This is how she makes her kids fall in line. This is how a mom is always going to be a mom and she should be the one to decide and fix and do what needs to be done and tell her child what she needs to do. But your job as a mother is to nurture, is to cultivate, is to empower, it's to encourage, it's to uplift. It's not to hold the reins and snatch the life out of, and then also project what it is you feel like, you know,
what it is that you fear or what it is that you think, or your opinions, the opinions that you hold, or the perspective of the world that you have.
Exactly. And so, you know, we were able to have that conversation, but I'm not gonna lie, I had to come at that conversation, I would say a good like 10-15 times, to where it would literally be like, Mom, you know, I love you, I respect you, or it would be my mom, we ain't gonna talk about this no more. Or it would just be like, Mom, I love you and I respect you, let's just table it, let's come back at it another day. But it literally took about 10 or 15 times, I kid you not, for us to continue to try to have this conversation before there was really a break. Before it was really a break, you know. And I can understand, I think in my case, you know, it was something that I could handle because I felt like it was deep, but it wasn't that deep for me. But I can see how it could be that deep for other people, you know, in other ways, because we all have different situations and things impact us differently. So I would say, even though for me, it wasn't as daunting of something that I needed to heal from specifically, but it was still difficult and it still took time and it still took effort and energy, and I still cried about it. You know, it still made me feel sad. It still made me feel significant. It still made me feel, you know, some at times, you know, motherless, or like, you know, someone wasn't, you know, an advocate for me because she was advocating for what she thought was best for me versus actually advocating for me. So, but, you know, I said that to say, I can understand how that can be a lot deeper for a lot of women out there, and how it can cause you to not talk to your parents, because at the end of the day, if your mental health does come first, you must be the best version of yourself to help anyone else, to be able to inspire, uplift, live in your purpose, and be who you're called to be. You have to be mentally healthy. You have to be sound. You know, that's the only way. That's the best way to help someone else. You can't, until you help yourself, you can't fully help anyone else at you know, maximum potential. So I mean, that's what I'll say to that. A little long-winded.
No, that it's not long-winded. That was very eloquent, and I feel like a lot of people will resonate with that, because, you know, when we talk through trauma, a lot of times people see it as this catastrophic series of events, right? And some people really did have relationships with their mother that were completely unsafe physically, completely unsafe emotionally, where it is best for everybody that maybe you and your mom cut contact, right? But we want to approach this too from a situation of people who are very close with their moms, who love their moms to death, but who still are picking up the pieces from some of the mistakes that inevitably we all make, right? When we're parents, we'll make mistakes with our kids, and our kids will have to figure it out. Prayerfully, it's less and less with each generation. But you said something that was very interesting that I really want to touch on, and that's the fact that the mother wound in your case was generational, but I don't think that's unique to you. I think that in communities of color, altogether, right? I hear this from Asian people, Indian people, like little Russian, like they literally are like, our mamas don't play, right? They like Caribbean moms, African moms. It's really communities of color.
Well,
right?
you're just going to be a nurse. Oh no, you need to be a doctor.
You have to be a doctor. You have to be an engineer, right?
Right.
But I think for the Black community specifically, it's Black Americans, right? Our stint in America has been short, right? Slavery was like 250 years ago. America was created 250 years ago. So slavery was all of 150, 160 years ago. And then civil rights itself is one lifetime.
We had great grandparents that were slaves.
My Uncle Junior was at the Civil Rights March at his high school in Birmingham, Alabama. And he alive and well, still, baby, at all the events, okay? So this is something that the Black community is having to heal, but understand that your mom needs grace because there's only roughly 5 generations, depending on your family line, of women, right? That's only 5 moms. And the first 3 of them, the first 2 were slaves. The middle 2 was in the civil rights. And your mom was probably the very first one. Like my mom was the first to spread her wings, go to college, move into corporate, you know what I'm saying? Like really start navigating these spaces that Black women had not been able to get into even beforehand, right? And so because of that, when you think about the conditions at which Black people were constantly living in fear for their lives, parents, Black children did not have the opportunity to disobey because for them it was a matter of life and death, right? If as a child in civil rights America, really in slavery America, you not listening would cost you your life, right? Emmett Till was tortured, beat, and murdered for whistling, right? For whistling at a woman. And so
that's good.
For
I
them,
love where you're going. Go ahead.
For them, it's like, I would rather beat you with a stick for not doing exactly what I say, exactly when I say it. Because really that's me teaching you to save your life.
Correct.
Right?
Say that.
That takes a long time to transition out of. If you talk about you got 5 generations of moms in your family.
Be home before the street lights came on. Like that's where they worried
to death about their kids being dead and never ever coming home, right? And on top of that, it wasn't like Black people were at the top of the economic chain, okay?
Yeah.
We just now are getting to a space where we are really the first generation that has so much disposable income, right? I'm 26 years old and it's just me. I live in a brownstone townhouse. I drive a luxury vehicle. I don't have any responsibilities other than me and myself and I. My mama at this point was married with 2 kids. You know what I mean?
A husband
and a
to take care of.
And a
child, probably a poodle too. Shit.
And I always think like, I'm just now getting my mental health together to the point where I feel like, and not say, like, I'm not saying I would, I'm just leaving it out there. I'm just now getting my mental health together to the point where I feel like I can be the mom whose child is throwing a tantrum in the middle of a store and she's not emotionally triggered by it. Does that make sense? Like when you see, we all have this like community collective of Black like things where like you see a kid in the store acting a fool and you be like,
wouldn't be mine.
But the fact of the matter is kids need to have the freedom to act a fool in the store because they don't realize they're in a store, right? And there are productive ways to teach a child how to manage their emotions that don't include like cussing them out or beating them,
dragging them. You can try gentle parenting,
and that's not to say that that's the appropriate model for every family. But what I'm saying is that I just told y'all I was barely able to tell the people that I like, the man that I like him 3 years ago. So it took me I want to be completely,
I can attest.
You can never be completely healthy, but I want to be the healthiest I've ever been. Before I step into that new role of starting a family, getting married, all that good stuff. So I say all that to say, like, Black people in particular have a very different experience with the mother wound, right? And then on top of that, like,
Because we have a very layered experience.
And black women are forces of nature, right? Like, black women are not... Does Susie Homemaker just get to sit at home and be one-dimensional and flat? Yes. But when you have a woman who is provided for the house, raising the kids, teaching the kids, making the clothes, cooking for the church, keeping everybody else in the community afloat as the community therapist. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is
and being the warrior for the black man,
the warrior for the black man,
murdered in the streets.
Baby,
Jesus,
she did what she could do.
Please don't drag yourself to the mud being a warrior.
Please
don't. I'm sorry.
We're done with that.
We're done with that. That's a sidebar, but yes.
But no, so I say that to say that the black mother wound is unique, right?
Yeah.
The mother wound of color, I would argue, I've heard, is universal. But the black one is unique for that reason because it's so short, right? Like, it's this small chunk of time that really disrupted our family structure. Whereas in Asian culture or in Indian culture, like, this is 400 years worth. This is how they live, baby. You know what I'm saying? Like, Caribbean culture, like African culture, like, this is just how they live. This is what they do. This is 500-600. It's truly a cultural thing. Whereas with black people, it's more so rooted in trauma. Black people haven't really gotten a chance to truly define fully what their culture is, what their long-term beliefs is, how they build wealth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly.
So to move on to brighter days, right? How are you actively healing? What steps are you taking to learn the tools that you need to learn, to heal the relationship, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Can the mother-daughter relationship be healed?
I think that the mother-daughter relationship can definitely be healed, but I think that it's going to take a ton of intentionality. I think that it's going to take being coachable and having patience and discernment and wisdom and courage to be the coach with your parent as well, because in order to bridge this gap between the generations, we have to be understanding to say that, okay, yes, it's a new world, it's a new, there are new philosophies, there are new dynamics, there are more layers that come into play, but my mom still understands this from her perspective of what she experienced growing up. So I do have to be patient. I have to know when to go, when to hold, and when to fold, so you must be wise, and you must understand that it is a process for the both of you. So, be patient. I think that, and to answer that part of the question, that's something that I have been doing to heal, is not only am I going to therapy, and I've talked about it, like I've written the letter and tore it up. I've done that in therapy as well. That was very therapeutic. That was amazing, because literally I just got to release it. So I've done that, for my dad and my mom. So the father wound and the mother wound. And then also, like you mentioned earlier, the holistic psychologist, oh my God. It, like, literally, I'm subscribed via text. I'm subscribed via text. You think it's a game, okay? I bet you when I go back to my phone, the text will be sitting there waiting on me.
Hey, Nicole do be texting you.
Nicole will text you, okay?
And it be at the right time.
Right when you get off of work, honey. She knows how to decompress you, baby. Or depress for momentarily until you work through it, you know, because she'll ask you some tough questions and she'll give you some powerful statements to really think about. I will say, but I make sure that I've cleaned up. I've been more conscious about my mental health. So even with social media, though I love social media and I use it as a platform for different things, but I've cleaned up who I follow. I have curated a timeline that is going to be healthy and beneficial for me. So putting people like the holistic psychologist on there to where I'm constantly having that to regulate my mental. Even Charlemagne, see the God from the Breakfast Club, he posts a lot of encouraging stuff, a lot of mental health stuff. So a lot of people that I follow, like yourself, like Daria, like Ramiz, these are just a few people who are really heavy into mental health that I follow. They could be good, good friends of mine, but also like the love therapist. I make sure that I follow her too. I really like her posts also. So just curating an environment and an atmosphere for healing, on top of seeking it out, with the therapist, and then on top of, doing some observing work on myself. Like, okay, what are you feeling right now? Why are you feeling that way? Let's unpack that, but most importantly, you will not be healed from these things until you address these things. So I have to continue to have the uncomfortable conversations with with my mom or my dad. In this case, we're talking about mother. So my mom will continue to have conversations and talk about things like, hey mom, can we talk about this real quick? It's not you, I'm not blaming you, but I want to make sure that we fix this because I see an opportunity for both of us to heal. I see an opportunity for both of us to not perpetuate this to the next generation. Let's unpack that. Tell me, and even asking my mom. I've had to learn more about her as a woman because I think a lot of times we think, okay, well, this woman, she's just my mom. I mean, because what else you got to do besides be my mom? Like, that's what we think. But, our mothers, they are women.
Yeah.
They're women who have loved, who have been hurt, who have been in pain, who have been wounded. And so I think it'll also help us to be able to humanize them by knowing what they've been through. And again, that's not a cop-out, that's not an excuse, but what it is it just allows you to come from a more understanding place. And I think that'll be really helpful on that journey as well, because that way you don't get to just have someone to blame. You understand that you guys are collectively fighting this mother wound. But you are addressing it head on with that person that is, that has projected it on you. So that I feel like that gives a little bit more balance, but that's what I'm doing. What about you?
A lot of the same things. One thing I will say though is that was definitely an area, and still is an area of opportunity for me, right? Is the approach to this conversation, because similarly to you, like I've tried to have the conversation probably 5 or 6 times, and it was a shot. I'm talking about like it was not, but it was because as much as I thought that I was approaching it from a place of I'm not mad anymore, but I just need you to know you hurt me, right? That's not the way to approach it. And I think because I was still holding on to so much anger, right? I wasn't able to approach it from a standpoint of, like you said, right? You and I both have this wound that we're actively working to fight against together, right? Like, so I definitely think that that's amazing feedback, and I encourage y'all to consider the approach, even if you think it's a good approach. Tread lightly in the approach. I tried a few different approaches. I tried at one point, because I had tried the conversation route a few times and it just went left, right? And it's because my mom and I are both very headstrong, and I even tried a book club. I was like, let's do a book club, right? Let's read this book together. Y'all, she read me for filth over this book club, baby. But we were able to finally have some sort of a breakthrough earlier this year, and it just will take time.
It will.
Something that I'm actively doing to heal myself. I actually just enrolled in therapy again, so I'll have my first appointment. Well, by the time y'all hear this, I'll probably be 3 or 4 weeks in. But that's definitely first stop for everybody is therapy, right? The second stop is education, right? And then the third for me has been actively working through like emotional regulation and mindfulness practices. So really just reconnecting back to my body, being able to, like you said, in the moment when I feel intense emotion, this is not even in regard to my mom, but just like in general, right? Like general life stuff, a coworker tried it, your man playing, whatever the case may be. Because for me, I really only had 2 emotions, right? I was either happy or I was pissed off. And I didn't really know how to navigate anything in the middle. So I was either like extremely like, or I was just like, just don't nobody say nothing to me. And it's because I didn't know how to manage those emotions. I didn't have the tools to manage those. And so learning that has been incredibly tremendous, right? To learn how to feel the emotion, how to let that emotion kind of run its course, and to be able to communicate how you feel, and to separate how you feel from what is true. That has been a big one. Yeah, huge for me. It's to separate, that, right? And then, like you said, because I think I've always, at least in my own mind, been able to see my mom as like a woman who has her own life. But I think I feel like the reverse is where I used to, like you said, not feel like she saw that in me. Like she didn't recognize me as a woman with my own life too, right? And my own feelings and my own way of perceiving things and things like that. Again, do I believe that the mother-daughter relationship could be healed? Yes, I am a walking, living, breathing testament of it.
Amen.
I'm not getting into it in this podcast intentionally, right? Because I want y'all to know that the relationship truly can be healed. And I don't want to dwell on recounting the many pains of the past, because at some point you kind of realize that you just have to abandon what was and rebuild, right?
Amen.
And you just kind of have to say, hey, what happened, I'm going to process it, but moving forward we can rebuild something new. And so that's really where we are. And I definitely think it takes two, like with anything else, any other relationship. But if your mom is willing and she's trying, like you said, it's learning how to, as the child, kind of be the coach or the leader in that rebuilding of a new relationship, because she doesn't know how. As we just said, 5 generations of moms. Our parents, they didn't have the luxury of Instagram accounts explaining to them what psychotherapy was, or books about parenting, access to therapists,
insurance for therapists,
knowledge of what it was,
black therapists, the abundance, and there's still a shortage, but the abundance of black therapists,
even exposure to other lifestyles, right? We see so many other types of lifestyles and parenting that we can say, well, this ain't the only way, but they didn't see that.
I have to knock my kid upside the head and call them stupid.
But they didn't see that, right? So it absolutely can be healed as long as your mom is, as long as you know that your mom loves you and that she's trying. It's up to you to kind of do the work to heal on your part, so that you can lead, like you said, be the leader in those conversations, or in those in just the general rebuilding of the relationship. You know what I mean? So that's how I'm actively healing. Again, mine was like a while ago, so a lot of mine is just kind of time. You know what I mean? Like me and my mom have been good we've been good with a couple rough patches since I was in college, so at least since 2017 now. And honestly, I don't dwell on that. Like I've acknowledged it, I've worked through it, and so I try not to keep it all at the front of my mind and dwell. I try to dwell on what's ahead, what we can build now. Because at the end of the day, we're great friends. My mom is an amazing woman. Everybody love her. She's a hoop. She's a great time. She's a boss. She's my role model in a lot of ways. My mom is multi 6-figure earner. Like she does that. She's that lady. That's all that I can say.
Sis.
You know what I mean? She don't play no games. Like she's very active in her community, smart as a whip, loving, super social, like phenomenal. And so I'm learning to connect her as a friend, right? Yeah. That's kind of where we are in our relationship. So yeah, it can for sure be healed. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of patience, like you said. And it's not going to be a one shot thing, especially if your mom feels blindsided by this, right? A lot of moms be like, where is this coming from? What are you talking about?
I did the best I could.
Exactly.
What do you have to complain about? I gave you the best of this and that. Your friends didn't have this. So, understand that, especially the first time that you bring it up, that might be the rebuttal. But understand that you just have to keep chipping away at it.
And you have to lead by example, right? You have to, like you said, be able to say, hey, mom, I love you and I respect you, so let's just table this for later, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you do that enough times, then she'll learn how to say, hey, Alicia, I'm running hot right now. Mm-hmm. Let's just table this for later. Right?
And I promise you, my mom started doing me like that. And I was like,
and that's what you want. That's what you want. Like that is true productive healing and growth and forward momentum. So on that note, honey, that's the black mother wound. The mother wound in general, but the black one to be specific. We want to leave y'all with resources, with people to follow, accounts to get you started on learning about this. So please check the show notes. I'll put a couple of book recommendations. I've read 11,000 books. So I will put
11,000.
Yeah, baby, about 711 books. So I will put some recommendations in the show notes. We'll also add those Instagram accounts of the few therapists. I follow like a million therapists. Just because every time, this is like a sidebar, but anytime you want to shift your life, I always say that you need to shift your timeline, right?
Absolutely.
So social media is the easiest way to hack your brain because it's what you see the most. Mm-hmm. So whatever you want, whether it's to adopt a fitness journey, which is like what I'm on now, but to save money, to start investing in stocks,
to start cooking,
to cook, to take care of your home decor, to start a business. Follow. Flood your timeline with people who are doing that, so that you see that over and over and over again. So don't just follow one, you know what I mean? Follow one, and then as you see posts in your Explore page that pop up that resonate, follow them so that you get that content pushed to your feed more often. And then as you go through new phases in life, you can start phasing them out, unfollow them, and follow new people, right? Like I used to follow not millions literally, but a bunch of therapists, and now I
phase certain ones out. You don't need it.
I phase them out because I don't need to see that all the time. Then it kind of got depressing. Like, all right, well, I don't need to see all this all the time. Right? But it was the same way when I was trying to learn what I wanted out of love. I had to see. I followed so many Black marriages, so many family pages, and I just love that content, so I still follow a lot of those. But when I was learning about stocks, I follow a whole bunch of Black wealth movements, a whole bunch of personal finance accounts, debt-free accounts, etc. So do that for your healing. Follow a bunch of people. Flood your atmosphere, like Alicia said, create an environment or atmosphere for healing, and it starts with you, right?
It does.
On that note, we will see y'all next week.
Okay.
For a little bit lighter topic, we get into business. So the art of expansion.
Yes.
So we're gonna talk about expanding that business, baby. I know it's completely different, but we get into the money, right? Once you get your mind right, get your money right. And that's what we're talking through.
And we're about to get to the bag.
Get to the bag all year, all 2022. So y'all have a good week. We don't have wine glasses to toast out,
but we love you guys.
We love y'all. Cheers.
Bye.